Bonjour, Habari Saleo. My name is Daniel Adeni, a professional officer at ICLEI Africa.
My name is Sinetemba Mtetwa, an intern at ICLEI Africa.
My name is Paul Curry, Manager of the Urban Systems Unit at ICLEI Africa. On behalf of ICLEI Africa, the African Centre for Cities, Our Future Cities, and partners, I'm excited to welcome all of you to the Rise Africa 2021 Action Festival.
Rise Africa has been growing as a platform of thinkers, doers, and enablers, committed to inspiring action for sustainable cities.
Rise Africa is about building active networks across academia, government, private sector, civil society, and the arts.
Our entry point is not based on articulating problems followed by proposing solutions, but rather on celebrating our cities as places of innovation and culture, while asking, what more can we do to make them sustainable, inclusive, and vibrant?
This festival is hosting 46 sessions from across 16 countries in Africa and the world. Every session aims to share new ideas, showcase ongoing actions, and launch new initiatives by bringing participants together to chart a new route forward.
We hope that the festival program will inspire you to commit to one or more specific actions that you or your organization will take on. As this session closes, you will be redirected to a survey in which you can articulate these actions. We will follow up on these committed actions throughout the year and offer resources, connections, and support. In this way, we are testing the idea that events can galvanize actions, and we hope that you will join us in this effort.
Beyond the session, there are many ways to take part in the festival.
Register for further sessions.
Vote for your favorites in the photo competition.
Watch a variety of inspiring video provocations.
Test your knowledge of African cities from our daily quiz.
And listen and dance to the Rise Africa 2021 playlist.
We hope that you will make all the attempts to reach out to new people and build long-lasting connections.
Before we begin, it is important to note that this session is being recorded, and that by participating, you are consenting to be recorded. All the recordings will be available on the program page after the festival.
And may I say that creative expression is vital for creating new futures for our cities. So we invite you to enter this session in the spirit of creativity and dreaming. Thank you very much.
To my future children, I bequeath this continent, borders lowered and turned into a soft pile of dust, smooth sand under steady feet. Your birthright is a country of flowers, a city that holds you even with your complicated lineage, the way this city has held my heart, held its arms out for all of the lost people who found solace in it. Your heirloom is this land and all its wormholes, portals hidden in plain sight between city skyscrapers, where people from here resemble people from far away places, and differences are muted while life happens. I reimagine you a country that does not cage its doves, a bequest of waters that pool precious histories, mountains that stand guard to protect against the unknown, a nation who preserves compassion over everything else, a mouth that can home many languages, and a spirit that rises above its fears.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, depending on what time it is in your country. Thank you very much to each and every one of you who is here with us today. My name is Vanessa Tita, a professional officer in climate change, energy, and resilience at ICLEI Africa. So before we get started, I would like to express my sincere appreciation to the Rise Africa team, to our project partners, to our project funders who have generously helped us to make this event and this particular session come together to become successful. We truly appreciate your dedication. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I am pleased to welcome you to our Rise Africa session on building healthy relationships between local governments and civil society organizations to boost climate action. So this session forms part of a project that ICLEI is currently implementing. The project is called SEMCA, which stands for Scaling Up and Empowering Movements for Climate Change Advocacy. And this project is currently being funded by the Urban Movement Innovation Fund. So we hope that we will gather a lot of lessons and insights from our discussions today by exploring the multi-level governance processes that are required to build systems for meaningful collaboration between local governments and civil society organizations. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I believe that by participating in this session today, we are in the right place and the right time. And together, let us try and accelerate that exchange of ideas and scaling up of good practices. I'm extremely pleased that discussions from this session will inform most of the projects that many of us in this room are currently implementing. And I'm also confident that you will find new ideas from the people that will be in the rooms. You will get that fresh energy and you will build partnerships from this event. So please engage as much as you can. I think I will stop here and I would like to introduce to you Robin Oakley, a co-director from the Urban Movement Innovation Fund, for a welcome address. Robin, it is with great honor to have you here with us today. Over to you, Robin.
Thank you, Vanessa, for that wonderful introduction. It's an honor to be here as well. And thank you and congratulations to ICLEI for this amazing festival and for the prospect of this fantastic and really important session. It's genuinely a pleasure to be here, and I think we'll really create some exciting, interesting, and creative new ideas in this space. By way of framing the conversation, it's important to remember that cities are sites of positive change. Cities set political direction. Cities are economic hubs of activity. In cities, many issues intersect that affect all different parts of society, and diverse populations come together and can forge solutions. And so cities really must be at the forefront of tackling the issues we face today, not least of which is climate change. City leadership is already key in having a huge impact, but the ambition and implementation of many of the creative ideas that cities, both city governments and city populations, the ideas that they have often fall short of its full potential. And one of those reasons is that we can do more to bring together both the citizenry and city leadership, both movements and governments, both technical experts and people, communities with real knowledge of their needs, as well as those who offer services that might meet them. And by building that alignment and building those healthy relationships, we can superpower the solutions that we all need for the problems of every part of society and the intersectional issues that come together under the biggest challenge we face, which is climate change. And so with that, I welcome you all to this session. I look very much forward to hearing the ideas shared today, and remind you that the work we're doing here is wonderfully, but also gravely important. Thanks very much again, Vanessa. It's really a pleasure to be with you all.
Thank you very much, Robin, for that warm welcome address. It is greatly appreciated. It is with great honor now that I introduce to you our session facilitator, Solofina Nekesa. Over to you, Solo, and I wish you all a very successful session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vanessa, and I would like to welcome you all to this session. So this has been planned to be quite an interactive session, and we've done it such that we'll have first of all a discussion between three project cities, and here we'll look at the different themes that the different cities and organizations are exploring under the SEMCA project. But I think important what some of the key takeaways from this are going to be understanding really how the relationship between civil society, organizations and local government is currently working out and how it could work better. And we'll have experiences shared from both the governance perspective, from the local government perspective, but then also from the civil society organizations that are trying to reach out and engage with their local governments. So then from there, we'll break out into the virtual discussion rooms, and we'll have discussions around three key questions. And these will be moderated by our discussants who are part of the project. And I think being that these are either the civil society organization or the local government that will be moderating these, it will really create key points of interaction, key points of learning, where you're learning straight from the people that are on the ground, that are running the civil society organization, that are interacting with the local governments, and really how are they learning, or how could this relationship work better. So then from there, we'll report back to plenary, reflect on some of the key issues coming out from the discussion rooms, what are the key learnings. But I think what we would like to take away from this is to come up with some of the key strategic points on how to make relationships between civil society and local government functional. And I think it's up to us right here to define what healthy means. What does healthy mean for the local government, and what does healthy mean for the civil society organizations? So with that, I'd like to welcome our discussants for this session, and I would like to proudly describe them as the doers within the city, the people trying to bring about change with whatever means they have at their disposal, from either the local government angle or from the civil society organization. So our discussants will be Ms. Bwalya Funga from the Lusaka City Council. Welcome to the session. Then we'll have Olamide Ejo, who is the director for the Lagos Urban Development Initiative, commonly known as LUDI. She is working in the areas around mobility, and she will really share how she's been engaging with the local government to push for such key initiatives to be implemented in the city, but then also to include a wider network of voices. And then I will also have a discussion with Dr. Daniel Mayinji, who is the Director of Growth Partners Africa and the coordinator for the Kenya Food Rights Alliance. So, so Daniel's expertise, I think, as you can hear in the title of the organization, is really around food advocacy, and he will be able to share some of the key lessons coming out from the work that he's been doing in engaging as a civil society organization around issues of food food security, urban access to food. So I think with that, and then we'll also have a reflection from Mr. Eddie Chikuta, who is working with Luisi. And here, I think this is going to be quite an interesting discussion between Luisi and Ms. Bwalya, because now we have a civil society organization sort of having this discussion with the local government that they're working with. And then here we can see, are there tensions? Is the relationship working? How can this work better? So I'm really looking forward to this, and I hope you all are looking forward to this discussion. And I think let us not be afraid of the tensions, and let us not be afraid of bringing out some of the issues, because at the end of the day, we want the relationship to work. And I think what has been important during COVID, COVID has really helped us understand that there's some areas that local governments were not able to reach, especially areas around access to food for urban citizens. And civil society did play such a key role in bridging this gap. So I think feel free to bring out these tensions, the discussions, and I'm very excited to open the chat. So I'll start with from the local government perspective, because, and this is will be directed to Ms. Bwalya. You know, you have been working with a different civil society organization, but more notably, you mentioned that you've been working with Luisi around different important issues around water and sanitation, as well as other issues within the city. How would you describe this relationship? You know, and would you describe it as a healthy working relationship? And at what point did the city or the civil society organization feel that this was the best approach for the kind of project that was being carried out? So over to you, Wally.
Thank you so much. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. And I think I've already been introduced. My name is Bwalya Funga from Lusaka City Council. And I'll just highlight some of the benefits of working under LUCI, that's Lusaka Water Security Initiative, and also some of the quick wins that we've seen as a local authority. So I would just like to mention that as Lusaka City Council, we became a member in 2016. And we've worked on a number of projects under LUCI, and our main focus has been community engagement as a local authority, because it's within our mandate and which is to make sure that planning and decision making is done at community level using the bottom-up approach. And from this session, Lusaka as a district hasn't been exempted from issues to do or the effects of climate change. We've experienced droughts and flooding as a city, and which is some of the main focus for the Lusaka Water Security Initiative. And the initiative looks at a multi-stakeholder approach. And in this approach, it'll look at community empowerment. And this is strengthening the planning and decision-making within the communities. So we work with the ward development committees, which is the lowest structure within the community itself. And we've been planning, and from this strengthening of collaboration with the communities, we've been able to develop local area plans that reflect water security in 5 wards. We are currently developing COVID resilience plans in 5 wards as well under Lucy. And also we were able to set the new water agenda for the city using empirical evidence or input from the community level. So apart from that, the other approach that has been used under Lucy is the participatory development. And this is the involvement of the different stakeholders. If you look at Lusaka, we used to work in silos, meaning different resources were being channeled to different activities. So through this platform, we've been able to leverage resources and put both technical and financial resources together to try and meet the issues that Lusaka is currently experiencing. And the other thing that is good about the Lucy platform is the harmonizing of the different approaches. So here, we've been able to strengthen accountability. People have been able to take responsibility in line with their mandates as well. So from all this said, or from what I've mentioned, we've seen the relevance or the importance of working with civil society organizations, because there are things that we were not able to do as a local authority on our own, but we've been able to achieve more being part of this platform. So I would encourage others to have similar initiatives, because one, it leverages on both financial and human resources at district level. And also you'll be able to identify the issues as a whole and also find solutions together, and people will be able to put in resources. It wasn't an easy thing at first, but I can clearly mention that the successes are more than the challenges. So those are some of the quick wins that I can point out from the local authority level.
Thank you very much, Ms. Bwalia, for that. And I think, you know, when you say the issue of community engagement was really one of the key issues that pushed you to get out of your comfort zone and reach out to the people on the ground. I think really that represents like that key role that local government plays in really reaching out to different local stakeholders, people that are involved in the day-to-day activities in the different localities. So, and I think you point out that key point when it comes to working with civil society organization. But then, Eddie, from your side as Luisi, you know, what were the benefits from your organization, or did this make the implementation of work easier on your side at local government level? And then how do you foresee further engagements with the Lusaka City Council? You know, has it opened up more doors for other engagements and involving of more civil society? Is it meaningful in any way?
Yeah, thank you, Solofina, for those questions, and also thank you, Wala, for the insights and great start. Lucy, maybe just a small background on who Lucy is. Lucy, that's the Lusaka Water Security Initiative. We are a multi-stakeholder collaboration system of different partners and from the urban development and management sector, including public sector entities, private sector entities, civil society organizations, as well as NGOs. So Lucy is a collaboration system of over 30 partners. So what we have done is that we have brought different civil society organization, private sector entities, public sector entities into one umbrella, which is now called Lucy. And as a secretariat, our role is to actually manage and coordinate activities around water security to ensure that we promote a climate agenda that's inclusive and has an integrated approach where there is buy-in both from the public institutions like Lusaka City Council, as well as from NGOs, as well as civil society organizations and communities. And this, I think Lucy was coming in of Lucy was necessitated by the different challenges that were being faced in Zambia. One, the uncoordinated nature of development interventions, where working in silos was, I think, a key aspect, but that has resulted in not having holistic approaches to dealing with some of the development issues at community level. So we see a lot of different partners trying to push the climate agenda from different angles, be it solid waste, be it sanitation, be it water, but you find that we're not coordinating at that level. And also the aspect of lack of resources by public institutions like Lusaka City Council made it also worse. So in 2002, Zambia put in place what they call the decentralization policy. This meant to build capacity at local level through the decentralization policy to ensure local governance, so that emphasis starts at grassroots level and builds up into the central governance system to ensure that there is accountability that is built into that. So in 2016, we put together the Lusaka Water Security Initiative to bring together these stakeholders to ensure that we coordinate efforts. Since 2016, I think we have seen the growth of the Lucy platform, bringing on board different stakeholders. We are literally, I think, we've captured almost all the international NGOs, as well as local NGOs, as well as private sector entities. And our work specifically with Lusaka City Council has been quite exciting. Not only creating this civil society space helped us, I think, improve service delivery at city level, it has also helped create platforms for community involvement. Because one of the things is that we now are more or less like a mouthpiece and a conduit where communities can actually advance their community agendas into actually the local authority space. So as you might agree with me, team, that Zambia, in terms of the Civicus report, if you've seen the Civicus report, it actually says that Zambia's civic space is actually obstructed. So this obstruction, meaning freedoms of speech and also engagements on service delivery issues, are quite a bit not free as such. So that's why there's a need to ensure that we create platforms for community engagement as well with the local authorities to ensure that we improve service delivery. So since then, we have seen, like Walia was mentioning, we have actually leveraged funding to actually support and implement projects together with the local authority. As we speak, we are working on COVID-19 interventions where we leverage funding, but since we are not an implementing platform, Lucy is not an implementing platform, we actually provide that funding to the local authority, and we provide the coordination role, the technical support, and ensure that the local authority actually does what it's supposed to do as a mandate holder and delivers a service to the constituents in the different communities. Not only in terms of resource mobilization, but we have also seen aspects of capacity building and technical support, which has been a key problem for most local authorities because government funding is quite limited. But bringing together these different international organizations and local authorities and private sector entities, we've seen, I think, where projects have been developed, funding has actually been leveraged through Lucy, and we've supported Lusaka City Council to actually undertake its mandate. And from that one, we have seen Lusaka City Council being more open to working with civil society organizations because they've realized the value and role that civil society brings to the table, both in terms of technical support, in terms of financing, but also in terms of creating an enabling environment to ensure that ideas around community development, around city development actually are enhanced. So what has happened now is that they now play a facilitating role more rather than a prescriptive kind of planning where they would actually just bulldoze development agendas on communities and on civil society. So they've become more open. So we see them consulting more often. So Lusaka City Council literally calls Lucy, can you organize a stakeholder interfacing or coordination meeting so that we get to understand how we need to do planning at grassroots level? And we actually organize those meetings. We have different input from different organizations and private sector entities and civil society organizations and the community themselves through the ward development committees. So this has really helped grow the relationship between the municipality and the local organizations, where the city council is more or less now a friend of civil society organizations. And we have done a lot, and currently we are running a lot of WASH projects, climate change related projects that we're implementing with the Lusaka City Council. And as well, I think one of the pluses that I need to indicate is that the EU, if maybe most of you would be aware, the EU had done a call for proposals for local authorities to apply for funding towards SDGs. And we actually supported and did respond to that call for funding with Lusaka City Council, providing the technical support, as well as partnering in terms of what strategic issues are we going to look at city level to ensure that we deal with a lot of climate change issues at grassroots level. So for us, it's really been a plus to work with Lusaka City Council, and it's something that would continue advancing, and we are bringing on board other local authorities as well to get on board.
Thank you very much, Eddie, for those insights. And really, you speak really of the positives of what this engagement has been, and it's very encouraging. But Maya Adams in the chat asks, and I would like to ask this to Boalia. What have been some of the main challenges or the tensions in aligning the values of civil society as well as the motivations of the city councils? And I think, Eddie, you speak about some issues around freedom of speech as a civil society organization. But to you, over Boalia, what are some of those tensions coming up in these relationships with different civil society organizations?
It's difficult for me to point out the challenges, to be honest. But we've had challenges with our system sometimes when we receive funding, and we have such a bureaucratic system that sometimes procurement processes take longer, and which is different from civil society organizations. So those are some of the little challenges that we've been facing. And then the other challenge we had before was the political buy-in, but we've managed to get past that, because now what we've been doing is that for each and every program, we've been engaging with the local leadership, which are the area councillors and the mayor's office. Yeah. So when we initially started, those were the two challenges that we had, because people needed to understand our bureaucratic processes when it comes to procurement processes. And also sometimes we face challenges whereby when we engage in the community, the expectations need to be managed, because sometimes people will expect that you have to pay them for them to be part of the process. So we've managed to get over that, or through continuous engagement with the communities themselves. And just to explain that this process is not a council-owned process, it's a community-driven process. So those are some of the challenges that we face.
Thank you very much, Boalia, for that. Eddie, you have something to add?
Yeah, sure. Just to agree with Boalia and also add another dimension, I think the harmonization, the policy advocacy part, I think from a CSO perspective, we are big on policy advocacy and ensuring that we work within a framework of inclusivity as well as bottom-up approaches to development interventions. And like Wale is saying, local authorities are characterized by bureaucracy and more or less red tape somehow, which has really choked development interventions in some ways. So on one end, as civil society, we are trying to push an agenda for inclusivity, but we find that the political buy-in and also because these local authorities are run by what are called councillors who make the decision-making powers. So you find that the technocrats in these councils are actually people that buy into the ideas, but the decision-making by the end of the day is actually with people who make decisions, who are the councillors. So the challenge has been one on trying to now tailor make those policies into inclusive aspects to include bottom-up approaches, two aspects of gender mainstreaming aspects, even in climate change issues and projects. Three has been also aspects of managing, I think, and trying to communicate, I think, the aspect of increasing community voices and the local authorities dealing with and hearing what communities have to say, because most of the times the prescriptive nature of local authorities, they think it's unnecessary sometimes to do a lot of community consultation and emulate bottom-up approaches because it's too tedious. But we tell them that is why us as civil society, we're here. So just managing these two worlds has been quite difficult, but I think, as Wella has indicated, we have really come together and created that platforms where trying to really bring the community voice, trying to resource together, trying to bring different stakeholders on board, because we believe if we are going to reach the SDGs, we literally have to work within a framework of bottom-up inclusive approaches and also the human rights-based initiatives.
Thank you very much for that, Eddie. And really, this will form such a great background for the breakout and discussion rooms on some of the challenges that have been pointed out, and then some of the wins that have been pointed out. How can these complement each other to bring about healthy relationships? So this will be quite a great background for the discussions that will happen in Boalia and Eddie's breakout room. Thank you very much. So I'd like to invite Daniel Maingi from Kenya Food Rights Alliance. And we've had different engagements over such a short period of time. And I think more notably, I remember the dialogue that we held recently, and you're presenting on the role and importance of civil society organizations in key policy processes. So I'd like to hand over to you to take this forward and really reflect on the work of the Kenya Food Rights Alliance, but then also how are you currently pushing to work with your local governments? What have been the successes so far, or how can this relationship work better?
Thank you, Solofina. I have a short presentation which will probably capture many of the questions that we are asking, and maybe questions after that will come up. So allow me to do that real quick. Yeah. Hang on.
So on your top right, there's a present button. Yeah.
All right. I wish I could stop my video. So what we are thinking about towards a future of food that is sustainable, equitable, and secure in the city, county of Nairobi. These are just some reflections, and The Kenya Food Rights Alliance is a member organization. It's about 37 food, civil society organizations. We have NGOs, networks of community-based organizations, and actually social movements. And you're going to see what role each is playing on policy and also practical issues. The vision of Kenya Food Rights Alliance Alliance has always been a future that is sustainable, equitable, and just to all. So we've had to work innovatively with the city of Nairobi and the leaders, and especially with what is shaping up through this project with ICLEI and FAO under the multi-stakeholder platform with the local governments. Several things that are so unique about Nairobi is that we have leadership for the county government that is very interesting. On one end and on the left side, we have an elected government and a governor who was very popular, but very flashy and all that. And I think he had to be stopped through corruption. And now we have an acting governor, a lady who was actually appointed by the executive national government. And so we've taken issues of governance away from people control to where the executive government is taking up most of those decisions. And so this, on the right side, you have a parallel sort of government within a ministry, but it's running most of Nairobi. The military government, the military person is a former general appointed by the president to run Nairobi. And so the question of participatory planning with urban communities has not been there. And we are asking that through the multi-stakeholder platform that this needs to be encouraged. And so far, most of the decisions that have been made are top-down, having dethroned the elected government. We still have representatives, and those are where we talk, but the executive is exerting a bigger challenge. So yes, corruption, governance issues are there, and that is where the communities are coming in and insisting on public participation. So Nairobi is called the Green City in the Sun. And you see all these beautiful pictures, but with climate change, things are going to be worse, and especially man-made disasters that we're creating. Such that when you look at Nairobi, the issue of solid waste management is a big, big crisis. There are communities and people that are so poor. So when you see all those beautiful pictures, just remember there are poor communities everywhere. And these are the communities that have come together under the food social movement, and they are working with us. So in this picture, you're seeing the local government, that's the general himself talking to the communities and making sure that all that trash is collected. But in terms of now just sustainable food system and what we've been looking at under Kenya Food Rights Alliance, we do recognize the general definition under FAO that the food system that delivers food security and meets the nutritional need for all in such a way economic, social, environmental bases are not compromised is a good one, and sustainable from season and even from season to season and across generations. We have had also a big push from the government, the national government, for climate smart agriculture, but we are talking about nature intelligent kind of agriculture, and I'll show you how this is. And most so the people that you saw in the trash slide, those are so marginalized. So working with the food NGOs under Kenya Food Rights Alliance, we are trying to bring in technologies that are creating that resilience we need, taking cognizance of the limited space in some of these areas, but man-made problems where we're looking at, this is one of the major rivers in Nairobi. The rivers are so polluted with heavy metals and human microbial waste and all that, but they still have to produce food. These are kilns and all that, including purpose for the urban poor. And this is the system that we have had. And so incorporating climate change resilience practices such as mulching, not touching that water at all, but still getting all this green to grow. It's a work of collaboration between universities and NGOs in order to make sure that these people still meet their need for food, but under some safe conditions. Now, the riparian land, and everything is still under the city government, and we are asking that these spaces be available for the very poor, and that we consider food safety and all the vendor bills that are coming in a big way. The role of food social movements, that's the other citizenry in Kenya Food Rights Alliance, has been not only to bring in understanding and a lot of pressure to the government. Wherever there are issues, they go to the streets, and they've been really very vocal, such that when they go in with their elected representatives, the government has to listen to them. Lots of things are happening. Spaces are becoming green, and the city is cleaning up. But you can see we still have polluted rivers. This is safe space, but food, forest need to be considered. So is it possible that Nairobi can hide its problems, like the street people, polluted waterways, dam sites? You can wish them to go away, but they don't. And therefore, with all this, we are working with the city of Nairobi to come up with policies that will bring in some bit of justice to the marginalized people. And the civil society are at the front line actually to fight hunger, feeding street people, but they are becoming big and growing. And what do we do with them? Because there'll be the thugs and all these people that are on the streets. So what we are proposing with the civil society multi-stakeholder platform is that while we are protecting where they get their livelihoods every day by selling food, we also consider where they manage the waste and bring it to a place where it can be used, recycled back in the farm, the organic waste. Poverty is still a big issue, but we are asking for a lot of things. And I think we've been listened to by the national government, although they don't say what is our role exactly, but they hear what our points are, that when it comes to food waste reduction, solar and cold storage chain, solar drying becomes important. The poor who are so having bad diets need to plant food near them in a way that we are taking care of their vitamins, minerals, and all that. But as we expand agriculture and consider what kind of urban farming is going on, we want to say that the food needs to be produced nearby so that we are not transporting it far, but more so in a safe.
That we wind up maybe in a minute. Thank you.
Yes, one more minute. In a way that is safe, because food safety is a big issue, and we are sitting with them under that stakeholder platform. So this is things that are being done at the community level as they make money, as they get their food, nutrition, the role of the NGOs as we talk with the government is to make sure that all those issues are together. And lastly, we are looking at number 4. If we do get to a place where food is certified safe and green and sustainably produced, then participatory guarantee systems become critical. I think that was the last slide. And so, yes, it's a big issue that we have in Nairobi, but we are well prepared to work with all the stakeholders.
Thank you very much, Daniel, for your presentation. I think you raised one interesting issue or one question that that has kept coming up. Local governments are hearing the voices of civil society, but then how do they work with them? How do they collaborate? How do they incorporate civil societies into different governance systems, and at what levels? So it's really an issue of at what point does local government integrate civil society into governance processes, but then also can civil society start advocating for this? Can civil society highlight where they can strongly play a role and how they would like to be included in governance? I think these are some issues that that we can discuss during our breakout rooms. So thank you very much for your presentation and for introducing us to the work of Kenya Food Rights Alliance. Our tech lead will assist with stopping sharing of the screen. And also at this juncture, I'd like to invite Olomide from Ludi to share with us the work that Ludi is doing, and also reflect on that relationship that is going on with the local government, and how is it a complementary relationship? What are some of the tensions coming up in your work, and how can your work be supported better as you're working towards achieving the same goals and with the local government? Thank you.
Great, thanks so much, and thanks for having me, everybody. So yeah, my name is Olamide, as I think I've been introduced, and I think my bio will come up in the chat as well. So I just talk a little bit about some of the projects that we're doing, and some of the challenges and successes of working with different groups, whether civil society or local government or different government agencies. So most of our projects look at non-motorized transport and climate, around specifically climate solutions, supporting last mile travel and public transport. We also focus on public space, and within all our projects, we majorly work with state government and local groups, but we have worked with local government as well, but we have found it quite challenging. So I'll talk a little bit about that. I know this is why we're here today to talk about that. And also we try to focus on advocacy, working with government on policy and laws, as well as community groups, and trying to make those laws and policy applicable or implementable at a local level. We also work with local government when we aim to work with communities. So for example, I'll talk a little bit about some of our projects now. So one of them is the Girls Bike Club. And that is we pretty much realized while working on mobility that a lot of girls and young women are not participating in discussions. And when we did a couple of events in the past, maybe 3 years, we asked girls, why don't you, come to the events? Why don't you join discussions around cycling in the city? And a lot of them said, well, actually, we just don't know how to cycle. Even some of my staff don't know how to cycle. And this is what we're advocating for. So we thought, okay, what is a good idea is to actually work with some girls and teach them to cycle. And it's actually been a fantastic opportunity to see how that has galvanized the community to take interest in cycling. And for this project, we worked specifically with the Residents Association. We were aiming to work with the local government, but it was quite challenging to pin them down. And this was really because their focus wasn't on mobility at the time, and it wasn't on necessarily, empowering youth or things like that. But working with the Residents Association, we realized that they of course are closer to the residents because they are the residents. And also they can see the direct benefit to them and their children. And so it was a lot easier for us to work with them. And also another project that we worked on was the Wetlands Campaign. And here we worked with a community group, a local youth group. We also work with local government and also state government. So in terms of, because I think every country is a little bit different. So in terms of tiers of government or governance, we have local government, which is really, I'll call it citywide. But with Lagos is also a city and a state because it has a small landmass but a large population. We then have a state government, which is where the laws and policies are created, and then we have the federal government, which is for the whole of Nigeria. And so with the Wetlands Campaign, we were able to work with both local government and state government and this local youth group. And actually, the local youth group had already been engaging with local government, for years, and they worked very well together because they had aligned their vision for the community, and they had aligned where they could put the budgeting from different government levels. Also, there was an avid interest in flooding. So of course, looking at wetlands, it was all about flooding. And we really looked at it from an economic point of view. A lot of youth, we have a large youth unemployment rate in Lagos or in Nigeria in general. And so we thought it was important for us to align, not just looking at the climate issues of wetlands and flooding, but also looking at the economic opportunities. And also from a state government perspective, this was also important for state government because they're always thinking about, and I'm making it very simple here, but always thinking about how to make money, but it's not, it's not that simple. Obviously, make money is to put in certain infrastructure, healthcare, and so on. And also what we realized with this project is that we could hand it over to the youth group. So it was easy, it's easy for us to come in and leave a community, but then there's no continuity, there's no sustainability of the project. So this was really great that we were able to work with the youth group and also work with local government. And also work with the state level as well, especially around data, because data gathering is also a large issue in Lagos. And we don't have enough data, but here we could really collect data from the local level, which was helpful for their own tasks and work. And we were also able to work with the Ministry of Environment, because of course this is about an environmental issue and also about climate education. And so before I end, so those are the kind of just simple projects, or some of the projects, not simple, but some of the projects that we've looked at. But before I end, I just want to talk a little bit about what has ensured increased collaboration between different civil society groups and government officials. So of course, in Lagos, we're not at the stage where collaboration is vertical or horizontal yet, or it's not the norm. So we still have to do some hand-holding. We still have to, continuously support the different groups. We have to make sure there's an aligned agenda. I think that's very important, that everybody's on the same page. I think someone mentioned about earlier when they asked a question, I can't remember now, but it's also along those lines of, making sure that our values are aligned. And this can also help when we're creating something in a collaborative way, and really understanding what everybody's priorities are at that time. Another thing that has worked really well is peer-to-peer learning. So really trying to understand the capacity gaps in the different, and it's not just government officials that necessarily have a capacity gap, but we also have a capacity gap at times. And so it's really about how do we learn from each other. And then also, I think important for us is political will. So, with our projects, if there isn't political will, then, we're working at the community level, which is great, but then there isn't a larger focus from the political side of things as well. And we also have to understand who gains what. So whatever project we're doing, who is gaining what and why and when. And everybody needs to understand that. So it's not just we're understanding what we're gaining, but we're also explaining to the government or other civil society groups what they're gaining, and even community groups as well. And then communication, how do we communicate with each other? So a really interesting conversation I've been having recently about communication is not about dumbing down or, oh, let's dumb down all this so that people understand it, but actually what we're talking about are real situations. So we're talking about climate change, but what is climate change? Let's make it quite real for the people who are living in these situations, and really trying to make it, what is sustainable mobility, and make it really something that people understand, because they're already living it actually. So we're not actually coming to the table with new things. We're just putting, the jargon into the academic speech, And also I think budgeting is quite important. So who has the money, where's the money, and who has the money? And doesn't mean that that person who has the money has the power. So we also have to, think about those dynamics as well. And I think just lastly, we all need to kind of work together and work closely together. And we, from a government perspective, there's this agenda to eradicate informality. But actually, if we all work together, we can use the informality and formalize it so that it works for more people within cities. So I think that's it for me. I hope I answered the question.
Thanks very much, Olamide. I think you answered the question and beyond, which which is exactly what we were looking for. And I think one strong thread that comes out from what you're saying, and this I was able to link to Daniel as well as Bulia, was the issue of strategizing. And I think that's one thing that civil society have to keep doing, strategizing and aligning with either local governments, other civil society organizations, or even national government, aligning with their priorities. And then also aligning with, not necessarily completely aligning, but with people that have the power, that have the money, and the power can be in the hands of the local community, can be in the hands of the local government. So I think it's really important strategizing to be able to meet the goals and priorities of either the local governments, but then also the communities that you are serving. And I think another thread that comes through strongly is one around collaborations and partnerships. And when I'm seeing, when I look at Luwisi is a collaboration system of different local partners. When I look at Kenya Food Rights Alliance, it's a member organization. And Olamide also noted that, you're continuously seeking collaboration, you're continuously working with different stakeholders to be able to achieve your goals. So I think that is really one element that is key for civil society organizations and in their work. So thank you very much, our discussants. I did not want to end this. I think I could go back for another round of questions and reflections, but thank you so much. And I think at this point we take it back to our participants through the breakout rooms. So we're going to have a brief session of breakout where that will be led by three discussants, and then we'll be able to look at three separate questions, and these will be pasted. These will be shared or pasted in the chat. But please keep in mind the background that has been shared along the way, as this will guide other discussions going forward. Thank you very much. So I'd like to hand this over to our technical team to break us out into the discussion rooms, and then we'll quickly go over the different questions.
Yeah.
Maybe the other guys are still trying to get back into the room.
Yeah, welcome back. I wish I could have taken this a little longer. We're having such great conversations in a room, but all good times do come to an end. And I would like to request that we take just a few more minutes of your time, maybe 10 minutes, because the session was supposed to end at 2:30 South African time. So please allow us to take just 10 minutes more of your time to wrap up the discussion, and then so that we are able to leave with some conclusions. So I'd like to invite someone from. I'd like to invite Eddie. You'll be the first presenter to really let us know some of the reflections that have come out from your discussion in 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Solofina. My group and I had quite some good discussions, and I think it's eye-opening. So firstly, the experience with interfacing with local government, we had, I think, a specific example, I think, from Faustina, who's from Ghana, who works around aspects of gender mainstreaming, and also aspects of ensuring that the NDCs, specifically on climate action, are actually localized and things like that. So there've been quite some good engagements in terms of providing that platform for engaging and interfacing with government. But the problem has been where at local level, sometimes these different institutions and local authorities fail to actually get those submissions, the practicality of them in terms of implementation actually gets lost in translation, maybe due to lack of funding and other problems as well. But we see the need to actually, one, there's been an aspect of strengthening the CSO voice, because most of the time CSOs want to compete with one another instead of standing together to create a louder voice. Louder civil society voice. We want to look at other civil society institutions as competitors, which has not worked out in cases. And we reflected a bit on the Nairobi case, where we see there's not really an open kind of door policy where the local government wants to hear what civil society is doing. And there was a bit of reflection around, I think, creating platforms for the local authority in Kenya to learn from other local authorities in different countries, so that they get to just see how best maybe the other countries are actually working. And also, civil society also needs to make it known the strength and what they bring to the table. One, aspects of fundraising, technical support, because civil society has got actually a wealth of expertise that they bring to the table that local authorities can actually appreciate and work with. And that's one of the things that actually needs to really be put to the table to ensure that people understand the extent of the strength that civil society has in terms of bringing it to the table. And a few texts, I think one of the critical texts, one that has been discussed, is that I think there's need to create more opportunities for dialogue between local governments and civil society to ensure that there's constant engagements and create those platforms for collaborations. And also there should be this strengthened voice. And also, I think lastly, civil society organizations should be bold to come out with suggestions to local governments, regardless of what we think local governments, whether they will accept our ideas or not. But we need to be bold about our position to ensure that we put it categorical and advocate for the right things to ensure that, because that's the whole reason why as civil society we are there. So I think those are some of the issues, not to preempt, I think, what other people will say.
Thank you very much, Eddie, and for Eddie's group for sharing with us. Let's see where what similarities come out from Olamide's discussion. Olamide, welcome to Take the Floor.
Okay, great. Yes, we had a really good group where we had really good discussion as well, and we raised some very big questions and that we all need to kind of maybe think about moving forward. So firstly, we talked about working with local government and different government groups, and we identified that it can be quite slow, and mainly because also there's a need, local government needs backing from maybe national government and so on. And so they don't have necessarily the power to make decisions quickly. Then we also discussed about the private sector and the role of the private sector, because we haven't really talked about that in the previous session, and that there is a lot of power within the private sector. So we do need to leverage on them being engaged in continuous discussions around climate resilience and so on. And that community participation is mandatory. And so therefore it kind of becomes a bit of a tick box exercise. But how do we how do we get things to happen regularly rather than being a tick box exercise? And so we came up with things like building trust, having similar values, thinking about where is the harmony and rather than conflict, and seeing different ways of communication, because sometimes these ways of communication might not be the most popular or the most visible. Sometimes they happen in closed doors, but we still have to think about how we communicate with each other. And then we talked a little bit about healthy relationships. So we need to kind of understand the role and responsibility. We need to understand our role. We need to understand all the different partners' roles and responsibilities and where we stand. We need to be held accountable and we need to build trust. So trust came up quite a number of times. And then how do we openly collaborate? So again, how do we make sure that it's not a tick box exercise? How do we make sure that this collaborative conversation is continuous, and how do we make sure it's open? And then we talked about, good levels of governance. And an example of Australia, I think, was given, where there is trust in the government, but there's also the ability to criticize the government. And then we talked a little bit about, can this happen in an African context? And we kind of, maybe we didn't decide, but maybe not, but we thought, okay, maybe we have to think about having smaller scale of government, decentralizing governance. And if so, then what does this look like? How does this feel? What does this mean for the government structure in African countries and cities? And ensuring that there's transparency, again, trust, transparency. And then we kind of went into a bit of a depression in our conversation, talking about poor accountability, corruption. These are long-term issues. And so how do we also kind of think about these massive problems on a smaller scale as well? And then we talked a little bit about positive examples, because we got really depressed. So we thought, yeah, let's talk about positive examples. And Brooke mentioned, from ICLEI Africa, mentioned that there was a drought in Cape Town, and everyone kind of pulled their weight in regards to using less water. And so what were the learning points here in regards to working with hearing a mandate from government and actually everyone really kind of taking it on board as a personal thing for themselves. And from her own experience, speaking to other Cape Townians and South Africans, they've actually, everyone was participating in this reduction of water use. And then I gave an example of a tree group in Lagos who advocated for not cutting down trees, and they were, really just using social media, but then their voices were able to be amplified due to the people within the group, and they've been able to kind of change the way local government is working in regards to environmental issues, but also change the way roads are designed, or at least having that discussion about road design, from drainage to tree covering to pedestrian walkways. And then lastly, we talked a little bit about championing projects. So the idea that we need to have projects that can be champions, but also people that can be champions. And maybe these champions can change the culture. So we need to identify, these champions, and maybe, have galvanizing a lot of champions together can change culture and behavior, and create healthier relationships between different organizations. I think that was it.
Thank you very much, Olamide. I really think we need a learning lab, like a really learning lab dedicated to some of the learnings from the discussion group. I feel like I'm cheating everyone by giving you 3 minutes, but please be on the lookout for the communication coming from a SEMCA project for some of these learning labs that we'll be holding. So in a group, the last group which I was a part of, we ended up with more questions than answers, but I think Daniel will share some of these, and I would like to request that you share this in a short period of time so that we can close off the session and have more reflection time after the session. Thank you.
Oh, Solo, I had such a bad network connection. Not sure it's very good, but you have the points. Please let me give the lady
Okay.
the floor.
who can I pass the torch to in our group? Is it Boalia? Is it Maya? Or is it Nicola?
Or you?
This is unfair because I've been doing all the talking. But I think I'll really focus. I think on all the discussions that came up, there's some points that are aligning. You know, issues around communications are coming up, expanding the governance table, and then also the issues of championing projects. But I think more importantly, towards the end, when we started asking some of those questions that are really important to help us understand what is civil society, but then also where does civil society lie, you know, in the whole discourse. And I think one question that came up strongly was, first of all, what is a civil society organization? You know, do we know what that is? You know, and the comments about they could be NGOs, they could be movements, they could be grassroots organizations. But then, you know, what describes civil in civil society organization? So that's one thing that we really have to think about when also trying to understand the work of civil society organizations and how, and really where they lie in governance structures. And I think also importantly, there was a very important reflection that was really backed up by the by Boalia, who is a government official, was, you know, is a government capable of effectively implementing without the pressure from civil society organizations? You know, if there were no civil society organizations, then can government efficiently carry out its role? You know, and I think here the reflection was that CSOs really provide the necessary checks and balances required, as well as other key roles, you know, capacity building, issues around galvanizing resources for both civil society and the government. So to us, those were some of the key questions that came out, though we saw a lot of similarities in terms of outcomes that came out with the other discussions. So I think the thread I'm reading across the different discussion room is the issue of communication between local governments, but then also civil society is key to building trust, is key to building an atmosphere of accountability, as well as monitoring and evaluation, clearly communicating roles for local government, but then also roles for civil society. So open communication, I think, has been one of the key issues strongly coming through, and then expanding the governance table, including different civil society organizations, including private sector actors that may have access to resources, as well as other actors. Please use the chat function to add a thread or two that has strongly come out in this discussion. But I think at this point, I would like to safely close and hand over to Vanessa to close our session. And thank you very much for actively participating in the discussion. And we'll be able to share with you some of the outcomes as the project advances. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Solofina. First and foremost, I would like to express my appreciation to the speakers and the facilitators for their valuable contribution to our session. And also my deepest gratitude goes to all of you who attended the session and helped to make it such a successful one. I mean, hearing and learning from the speakers, the panelists, as well as the audience has really educated me, and I believe that it has educated some of us who are in this room on how we can build that healthy relationship between local government and civil society organizations to boost climate action. So I am certain that the takeaways from this session will further deepen our thinking and stimulate our work in the future. And yeah, I really hope that we learned so much from this session and we are able to take some learnings home. Before ending my closing remarks as well, I almost forgot, I would like to convey a special thanks to the technical team who have been extremely cooperative in staying with us throughout the entire session to make sure that it runs smoothly and it runs over time as well. Really appreciate you, the technical team. So I think I would now like to close my remarks and officially announce the end of the session.